The overhead fluorescent lights flickered once, twice, then blinked out entirely above the polished marble lobby. Silence settled over the room, thick with executives, glowing laptop screens, and the ever-present tick of looming deadlines. The stillness was broken by the squeak of rubber wheels. An old janitor's cart rolled into view. A man in a faded maintenance uniform stepped forward, toolbox in hand. No one noticed him until he opened his mouth. And then, fluent, flawless French cut through the silence like a scalpel, freezing the company president mid-sentence. But before we dive further into this moment, take a second to drop a comment. Let us know where you're watching from. And don't forget to follow for more stories like this. Alright, let's get into it. Tension rippled through the 24th floor of Lockridge and Bell Global, a corporate tower that never truly slept. Phones rang with urgency, heels tapped against the polished floors, and inside the executive conference room, nerves frayed as the building's partial blackout threatened to derail a high-stakes international call. "Where the hell is facilities?" barked Natalie Sutherland, the company's 47-year-old CEO. Clad in a razor-sharp black blazer and matching trousers, she exuded command. At that moment, Eric Barnes, a 38-year-old single father, weaved quietly through the glass double doors, grease-smudged collar and all. A faded superhero sticker, Captain America, barely clung to the edge of his canvas tool bag, evidence of his son's enthusiastic decorating. He did not belong here, not in this glass and steel world of custom suits and billion-dollar contracts. "Ma'am," he said, adjusting the weight of the toolbox in his calloused hands. "I'll take care of it." "Then move," Natalie snapped, not even bothering to glance his way. Around the table, the board murmured disapproval, one or two rolling their eyes. Eric didn't flinch. He made his way up the maintenance ladder with quiet focus, unaffected by the muttered comments. He had done this job 1,000 times, rewiring panels, flipping breakers, coaxing reluctant circuits back to life. Every moment mattered. His kid had overdue homework and was waiting for dinner. Then came the French. A voice erupted through the half-powered speaker system, sharp, demanding, and very much impatient. It belonged to a European investor whose company had just signed on for a massive product rollout. The problem? No one in the room spoke more than tourist-level French. Faces turned pale. Panic passed like static over the oak boardroom table. Eric froze for a heartbeat. Then he took a slow breath and spoke up. In perfect French, calm and commanding. Head swiveled toward him. Natalie looked up, stunned, her mouth slightly open, as if she had just seen a ghost from a past life. Her technician, had just salvaged a $200 million deal with nothing more than his voice. The room exhaled in unison. The tension cracked like a brittle shell. Eric stayed steady, fingers tightening a bolt overhead as the main power hummed back to life. The lights flared up. Screens stabilized. The client on the wall-sized monitor relaxed visibly and continued his pitch at full speed. Eric climbed down, walked toward the mic, and leaned in slightly. He's asking if the delivery timeline can be moved up by 4 weeks, his partner's relocating overseas sooner than expected. He explained in clear, crisp English before replying directly in French, navigating the nuances effortlessly. Stunned silence followed. Even the air conditioning seemed to breathe quieter. Natalie stood, her voice suddenly softer. "What's your name?" He cleared his throat. "Eric Barnes, ma'am." She squinted slightly, as though trying to see past the grime and sweat to whatever story lay beneath it. "Mr. Barnes," she said slowly, "stay." He nodded. The meeting resumed, with Eric calmly translating in real time. He eliminated fluff, smoothed over awkward phrasing, and transformed near conflicts into productive conversations. The room, once hostile, now hung on his every word. When the French executive finally agreed to the updated schedule and gave his digital signature with a smile, the entire boardroom was humming with something eerily close to reverence. Derek Vaughan, the company's impeccably groomed senior VP of product, who had been the most vocal critic of the maintenance guy disrupting the flow, was the first to break the silence. "Well, that was unexpected," he muttered, brushing a hand through his glossy chestnut hair. His name badge caught the light as he leaned back. Natalie shot him a look. Derek, reschedule the supply chain briefing for this afternoon. I want legal and logistics in the loop immediately. And Mr. Barnes? She turned to Eric, her gaze now one of assessment rather than dismissal. Do not go anywhere. Eric shifted awkwardly. Power's back up and running. If there's any more trouble, just log it, I'll handle it. I said sit, she replied, motioning to the empty leather chair beside her like it had been his all along. You just bought yourself a seat at the table. You're not leaving. Executives subtly shifted, forming a curious semicircle around him. He sat, his utility uniform rumpling against furniture that likely cost more than his entire month's wages. His hands, strong, steady hands that knew wiring, light fixtures, and the weight of a child's backpack, rested on the table, out of place and yet suddenly central to the room. At exactly 7 a.m., the corporate world saw him differently. And everything began to change. A hesitant cough echoed from the entranceway. A young intern stood frozen, balancing a tray of coffees in trembling hands. She was pale and visibly exhausted, her eyes rimmed with fatigue. The tray wobbled, and one of the cups tilted dangerously. Without thinking, Eric was on his feet, catching the cup midair with the precision of someone used to chaos. You did good, he said gently, his voice barely above a whisper. Just breathe. Thank you, she murmured, her face flushing pink. No one told me there was a conference call. I've been running around since 6, she added, clutching the tray tighter. Eric tucked a neatly folded napkin into her free hand. Keep this in your pocket. Might sound silly, but having control over one small thing, like where to set down a hot cup, can help you stay grounded. He took the tray from her, carried it to the buffet counter like it was made of porcelain. His rough hands, calloused yet careful, handled the cups as if they were glass jewels. Natalie Sutherland had been watching the entire exchange. Something about it held her attention longer than it should have. Mr. Barnes, she said, her voice measured, how many languages do you speak? He exhaled slowly, resuming his seat. Depends on what you mean by speak. French and English fluently. And where did you learn French? Eric's gaze drifted slightly as he replied. Working night shifts in kitchen backlands, and from a librarian who noticed I liked language tapes. She kept the tape deck at her desk after closing and let me sit on the floor by her cart, rewinding and replaying until the words stuck. Derek Von chuckled under his breath. So, what, are you a janitor/interpreter now? He muttered sarcastically. Eric did not look his way. I'm a father. Everything else I do is just to protect that. Natalie's gaze flicked to the worn canvas bag at his side, where the corner of a faded Captain America sticker curled upward. How old is he? 10. His name's Caleb. Smart kid. Kind. Eric hesitated, then added, he sketches spaceship diagrams for fun, labels every bolt and circuit. Says it helps him make sense of the chaos. Natalie's expression flickered, just a hint of a smile, but it vanished just as quickly. You referenced resources earlier, she said. If I asked you to sit in on a joint meeting with legal and product at 2 p.m., could you help us avoid stepping into international landmines in 2 languages? I can try, Eric said cautiously. But I'm technically here on a facilities contract. Don't want to overstep. From across the table, Derek leaned forward, his polished tone dropping its professional filter. There are legal complications. Confidentiality clauses. Regulatory boundaries. We can't just rope in a utility guy because he happens to speak café French. Business French, Eric corrected softly. And I'd be happy to sign an NDA, if that eases concerns. Derek shot back, yeah? And who's fixing the rest of the building while you're moonlighting as a translator? Who handles the fire alarms if one of them trips? Eric glanced at the ceiling, his mind tracing circuitry. Fire systems on a separate loop. Power's stable now. There's a load imbalance in the west bullpen. Someone installed the wrong power strips. That's why the breaker flipped when your wall display spiked. Derek clenched his jaw. Natalie's phone buzzed, cutting the tension. She skimmed an email, then looked up, her posture sharpening. Our client just demanded contractual revisions by end of day. If we miss this window, we lose distribution across 2 continents. Her eyes locked onto Eric. You read people well. Eric gave a one-shouldered shrug. I try. People tell you everything, if you listen to what they're not saying. Good, Natalie said. Because his partner was bluffing. That whole 4-week acceleration line? A smokescreen. He wants us to scramble, then lowball the pricing. She gestured to the monitor. You caught that too, didn't you? Eric nodded. He kept pushing the timeline, but never mentioned budget. He wants control. If we offer phased delivery, clear performance benchmarks, and one meaningful concession, like dedicated French language support, you'll preserve the pricing and give him something impressive to present back home. The boardroom shifted, like a camera lens snapping into focus. Natalie rose from her chair. Mr. Barnes, Eric supplied. Come with me. She led him down a corridor of glass walls and sleek lighting. Eric walked beside her in silence, noticing how her hands hovered near her sides, like she was building a question in her mind. She stopped at a tall window overlooking the city skyline. I grew up translating, she said quietly, almost wistfully. English from my grandmother's Creole French. It was the only thing that kept our world from splitting in two. She turned to face him. I know what you did back there wasn't luck. Eric shifted, uncomfortable. Praise weighed heavier than his toolbox. It's just repetition, he said. No, she said. It's grit. And freakishly accurate listening. Her arms folded. We have plenty of candidates here with dazzling resumes. Not enough with steady hands when the lights go out. Before he could respond, a crash sounded around the corner. A courier, gray-haired, pushing 60, had stumbled, spilling a stack of documents across the hallway. Papers fluttered like autumn leaves. The man groaned, bending down as one knee buckled. Eric was already moving. He knelt beside the man, collecting the sheets in neat piles, scanning the headers to reorder them correctly, third-quarter financials, legal appendices, proposal supplements. He returned each stack with quiet efficiency. You all right? Eric asked. The courier blinked. You just saved me from an hour of sorting and a write-up. Eric smiled. Sounds like you needed that hour. Natalie watched silently from a few steps back. Something flickered behind her eyes, something absent from the boardroom glare. Compassion. Something wide-scale. Something real. She murmured under her breath, kindness at scale. Derek Vaughan reappeared, that familiar frostbitten smile once again plastered across his face. Our legal team is ready to draft something up, provided Mr. Barnes insists on playing the role of consultant, he said, holding out a thin, manila folder. Standard non-disclosure agreement for external contractors. Sign here, and initial there. Eric took the pen slowly. But instead of scribbling his name, he flipped the pages and began to read, line by line. Years of moving between gigs had taught him one thing above all: never sign anything you haven't read twice. He paused halfway down the page. Clause 7, he said, tapping the paper. No non-compete beyond translation work today. I'm not signing anything that blocks me from feeding my kid. Derek's smirk faltered. That clause is boilerplate, he replied stiffly. Natalie reached for the folder, scanned the page, then turned to Derek. Strike it, for today. She glanced at Eric. We'll do this on your terms. Eric nodded, signing where needed. Somehow, the pen felt heavier than usual. Back in the boardroom, the afternoon sprint began. The product team outlined key milestones. Legal mapped out a phased engagement strategy. Eric translated the finer points into polished French. Not just the words, but the intent. He built rapport with tone, allowed dignity to breathe in every phrase. Twice, he gently rerouted a vice president who almost said something that would have sounded patronizing overseas. Once, he caught a single misused word, contrat in this case, which, if left alone, could have implied accusation. He kept the room moving forward, not just fast, but human. Between conversations, his phone buzzed. A message from Mrs. Kendrick, the neighbor. Caleb brought his sketchbook. Fed him grilled cheese. He asked if you could check his science project tonight. Relief loosened something deep in his chest. You're an angel, he replied. Be home by 8. At 4 o'clock, The French client called directly. Danielle speaking, Eric said calmly, with Natalie seated beside him. He paused briefly. That was all it took. When the call ended, silence blanketed the room. Natalie extended her hand. Eric shook it. Her grip was firm, focused, and full of something rare in rooms like this: gratitude. You just saved my company from hemorrhaging, she said evenly. Name your rate for today. Old reflexes made him want to shrug it off. Say it was fine. But he remembered Caleb's worn sneakers, and the upcoming custody hearing where consistency would be judged in invoices and routines. Pay me what you'd pay a consultant who salvaged a 7-figure contract, he said quietly. Then added, but one more thing. Natalie tilted her head. I've seen a pattern building in the West Wing: overloads, aging gear. You've got a fire risk. Especially at night when coverage is thin. Let me fix it properly. Not just patch it, make a real plan. Prevent the next time before it hits. Derek chuckled, the sound almost cordial. We've got vendor lists for that sort of thing. Eric's tone stayed even. Your vendor missed it. I didn't. Natalie studied him for a moment, long and hard. Finally, she spoke. Write up a one-pager. Scope, phases, cost. If it checks out, I'll sign it myself. Eric gave a nod. You'll have it by 8 a.m. As the boardroom emptied, the same intern from earlier reappeared. Her nervousness had eased. The smile she wore now came more naturally. Hey, she said, lifting the corner of the napkin still tucked in her blazer pocket. Thanks for the trick. Worked like a charm. Let's keep it that way, Eric said with a half grin. She hesitated. Can I ask something? How do you stay calm when people talk down to you like that? His mind flashed to all those years, sleepless nights under flickering lights, being shouted at in back kitchens, filling out job applications while whispering French into a tape recorder so his son could sleep. I remind myself they don't walk around with fire inside them. So why should I let myself burn? From the doorway, Natalie's voice interrupted gently. Mr. Barnes? Turned. Do you have dinner plans? He nodded. Told my son I'd check out his science project tonight. He built a Martian habitat from cereal boxes. The corner of her mouth lifted. Then go. She paused, her voice softer now. Your son's lucky. Eric hoisted his canvas bag over his shoulder, eyes flicking to the sprawling city beyond the glass. No. I'm the lucky one. He turned to leave. But Derek stepped in his path, his voice suddenly syrupy smooth, like honey spilled across gravel. Enjoy your little hero moment, Mr. Barnes. Tomorrow, we're back to reality. Eric met his gaze, steady, unwavering. Tomorrow is what I'm working for. He walked past, gave a polite nod to security, and thanked the admin by name. In the lobby, golden hour sunlight melted into evening warmth. As he stepped through the revolving door, he thumbed a message back to Mrs. Kendrick. On my way. Tell Caleb to clear off the cereal boxes, Natalie said, almost jokingly. I want to see that airlock design on the sidewalk. Eric Barnes said nothing at first. Outside, the city pulsed, a distant siren, the scent of pretzels from a corner cart, the whisper of tires slicing through damp pavement. The man who had fixed the lights was now rewiring something deeper inside himself. And the real work, the kind that was slow, deliberate, and almost invisible, had only just begun. He drove home through the amber glow of twilight, his old pickup rattling like it was held together by nothing but faith and duct tape. His hands were still trembling slightly from the aftershock of the day. But he did not care. Her words echoed in his mind. Your son is lucky. As he pulled into the narrow driveway, the porch light flickered, a reminder of the 100 other repairs still waiting for him. But before he could even step inside, Caleb came bounding toward him, arms wrapped around a foil-covered cardboard box. Dad, look. This is the Martian dome. I even built a landing bay. Eric crouched down, wrapping an arm around his son. I think NASA's going to be knocking on our door any minute, he said with a quiver in his voice. The kindness he'd felt out in the world was rare. But the smile on Caleb's face, that was enough to carry him. Over grilled cheese and tomato soup, Eric listened as his son tried to explain orbital mechanics the way only a 10-year-old could. His words came in bursts, spinning like tiny satellites. But in the back of Eric's mind, a warning still echoed. Derek's voice. Tomorrow, we're back to reality. Reality always had a way of biting back. The next morning, Eric returned to the tower. In his hand was the one-page proposal. Detailed, focused, and simple. He wore his cleanest shirt, sleeves ironed, hair combed neatly back. Security hesitated, unsure, until Natalie Sutherland appeared in the lobby. "Mr. Barnes," she said clearly, "he's with me." The room quieted. She led him through to her office, glass walls, skylines stretching outward like a chessboard. Eric placed the document on her desk. The plan covered key fire hazards, a phased maintenance schedule, and came in at a fraction of what their last vendor charged. Natalie read carefully, then looked up. "It's concise, smart, and it makes my facilities department look asleep." "That's not my goal," Eric replied. "I just don't like leaving live wires hanging." She tapped the page. "You know why I believe this will work? Because yesterday, you didn't move fast, you moved right. That's rarer than people think." Before he could respond, the door slammed open. Derek stood there, folder in hand, face pale with fury. "This is insanity. You're letting him act like he's part of the leadership team. He's maintenance. He doesn't belong in this room." Natalie's voice dropped in tone, ice cold. "He belongs wherever he brings value. Yesterday, he brought more than anyone else sitting at this table." Derek's lips twisted. "You're putting the company's reputation in the hands of a janitor." Eric stood now. Grounded. He met Derek's eyes without flinching. "You can call me whatever you like. Titles don't make the power come on. Work does." The air in the room dropped several degrees. Natalie slid the signed proposal across the desk. "Approved. Effective immediately." Derek turned and stormed out, slamming the glass door hard enough to rattle it. Later that week, Eric stayed late, rewiring panels in the western bullpen. Sweat slid down his brow, sleeves rolled up, hands steady. As he finished, he noticed the same intern from earlier, now battling a mountain of folders. Her shoulders sagged, her fingers trembling slightly. "They still call me that girl, like I'm invisible," she whispered, embarrassed. Eric reached into his bag, handed her a pen. "Write your name in big, bold letters on every cover. If someone tries to erase you, make them work for it." Her eyes softened. "Thanks. No one ever notices." That evening, as he made his way to the exit, Natalie intercepted him in the lobby. "I spoke with our French partner today," she said. "He said he trusts us now, because of you. Do you understand what that means?" Eric shifted on his feet. "It means I did my job." She shook her head gently. "It means you did more." There was something different in her voice now, not just admiration, but clarity. "You reminded me why people follow leaders," she said. "It's not about roles. It's about trust." Her gaze held his for a long moment. "We could use someone like you, Eric. Not just for maintenance. As a connector. A problem solver." His breath caught. For years, every job had been a temporary fix. Every paycheck, a life preserver. And now, suddenly, a door was open. But he thought of Caleb, likely already asleep at home. Of the paper rockets by the bed. Of the cereal box Martian base waiting on the dining table. He gave a quiet smile. "I'd walk through that door, only if it means I can still help with science projects at home." Natalie's expression softened in a way few ever saw. "Then we'll make it work." Eric stepped out into the night, his head held higher than it had been in years. He was no longer just the single dad who fixed the lights. He was the man who had been seen, who had earned respect without ever demanding it. And for the first time in a very long time, he believed something simple, powerful, and true. Tomorrow might just belong to him. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more like it. New chapters drop soon.